Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill is the best dentist I've ever gone to. 26 years ago, I made the call. I called 317-849-2933, and I said, Dr. Mike, can you help me? You know what he did? He helped me, and I have been coming back and coming back and coming back ever since. You'll love it at Today's Dentistry. I promise you. 317-849-2933 is the number. All right, we got a bunch of basketball tonight, right? Pacers coming up on Friday. We know that. Purdue lost last night. We know that. Let's talk about tonight. Then we'll talk about the Pacers. Pacers had a media availability today. We're going to hear from Nate McMillan a little bit later in this Sports Nothing But Sports. The first thing that he told us, and we'll hear it, but Victor Oladipo is not going to play back-to-backs, but the minutes restriction is gone. Vic feels very good about where he is right now. Feels like he's in better shape now than he was when the break started. He stayed in town. He worked out from 10 until about 4:30 every day, and so he feels good about where he's at. And I got to tell you, he shot it a little bit better at practice today from what we could see. We'll hear from Nate McMillan, like I said, in a few minutes. All right, Butler, I think they got a shot tonight. They're playing at Seton Hall. Seton Hall beat Butler at Hinkle not too long ago. I think it was January 15th. Tonight, they got a chance for revenge, and I think they get it. Seton Hall is not playing its best basketball right now. Miles Powell, still one of the best players in the country. But tonight, I think Butler's got a chance to do some damage against Seton Hall, against the Pirates. And I think they got a shot at winning this game. And that would really boost their resume for the NCAA tournament. They're going to get into the NCAA tournament as long as they beat DePaul and St. John's at Hinkle coming up a little bit later this season. They got those two games left that I think are win-win, right? And so they're going to wind up at worst 9-9 in the Big East. But if they get a win tonight, that's one of those quad one road wins that really boosts your level of seeding. Butler could go from being where they are right now, maybe a 6, to being maybe a 4, certainly a 5 with this win tonight. We'll see what happens. 6:30 on Fox Sports 1. Tune in, turn on, and whatever. I think Butler wins. Then at 9 o'clock, you got Indiana and Minnesota at the Barn up in St. Paul. All right. You know what? Indiana doesn't always play well there. They're 2-2 over their last 4 games at the Barn, so they played okay, but that goes back a few years. I don't think Indiana has much of a chance, and I'll tell you why. Because Indiana is playing disconnected basketball, and once the season is this far along, it's really, really odd for a team to come together suddenly and start playing spirited basketball together. That doesn't happen very often. I was talking to George Hill about this a few years ago when he was with the Pacers. And the Pacers were in kind of one of these seasons where nothing really worked. I was like, George, how rare is it for teams to come together this late in the year? And he said, it's really, really rare. Rare to the point that it almost never happens. I think that's where Indiana's at. I don't think that they're going to come together. You watch them play. I don't see a team that likes each other on the court. I don't see a coach that likes his team. I don't see a team that likes its coach. I don't see players liking each other. I don't see anything good. I see a group of guys who are not suited to play together. They are an ill-fitting roster, and because of that, this isn't any fun for them. And when basketball's not fun, you know what? People don't play basketball very well when it's not fun. And I think Indiana is kind of in that jackpot right now. Mike DeCourcy at the Sporting News, he wrote a piece earlier today about Indiana and Archie Miller saying, you know what, Indiana fans have got to be patient because Villanova fans were patient almost 20 years ago when Jay Wright out of the gate, 3 years into his run at Villanova, fans wanted him fired because things hadn't gone terribly well at Villanova. You look at other schools, this kind of thing has happened where it's been that 4th year where real good basketball came on the heels of 3 mediocre to bad years. Now, Indiana fans will point at a guy like Brad Underwood and say, look, this is his 3rd year. They'll point at Chris Mack and say, look, this is his 3rd year. And Indiana is trailing both those programs substantially right now. But you look at a program like Penn State. Let's take Penn State. Let's take Rutgers, right? Steve Pikiell. Steve Pikiell and Rutgers have been terrific this year. Penn State has been terrific this year. Hell, Pat Chambers has been at Penn State forever. This is the first time Penn State's going to go to the tournament under Pat Chambers, so things can change. What Archie's doing, he has changed his recruiting methodology. DeCourcy points this out in his piece. We know that. He's recruited really well out of the state of Indiana after Tom Crean was pretty much told by anybody inside the state of Indiana, no need to ask about our kids here because they don't want to come play for you and we don't want you in our facility. It was that bad between Tom Crean and Indiana high schools and Indiana AAU programs. Nobody was pledging IU. I know what you're asking. How the hell did they get to the NCAA tournament without beating Minnesota? It's a great question, and I have no answer. I think if they lose tonight, that their road to the NCAA tournament has to run through Indianapolis in the Big Ten tournament. If they don't win a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament, if they lose tonight, they have no path to the NCAA tournament. So there you go. I hate to say it. I think they're going to beat Minnesota and Wisconsin down at Assembly Hall. Penn State is a coin flip at Assembly Hall. Then road games against Illinois and Purdue are losses. So it all comes down to tonight. If they can win tonight, and that gets them to 10-10 in conference at the end of the regular season and 20 wins overall. And I know none of that means nothing to the selection committee, but it does, because beating Minnesota at Minnesota is a legitimate quality win. All right? And that it takes them to 10-10. I know 10-10 doesn't matter. I know 20-11 doesn't matter. But it sure as hell beats 9-11 and 19-12. So there you go. Let's talk about the Pacers. The Pacers, they've got the Knicks in New York coming up on Friday night. Nate McMillan, he spoke to the media. First question of Nate, how was the All-Star break?
I had some good time off. Everybody seemed to be rested and ready to go. I thought we had a good day today, got a lot of work in, and should be ready for the stretch.
Do you think you'll start to see a change to Victor as we move along?
Absolutely. You know, as I mentioned, he earlier, he's only played a few games. This is like preseason for him in the games that he has been back. And, you know, just like any other player, you know, coming out and playing in his first, 6-7 games, it's going to take some time. You know, it's going to take some time for not only the player, but for the team. And, so, of course, have to be patient with that. We knew that. You hope for the best, but you really know that, it takes time. He's joining the team and, coming into the season, mid-season or past mid-season, when everybody is at, in the best shape of the season. So we have to be patient.
Yeah, will you look to increase the 28-minute?
Yeah, we talked about that we would look at his 8 games before the break, and during the break we would, talk with Victor and the doctors have cleared him to no restrictions as far as minutes, but we're going to be smart about it and, see how, we'll play him. I can play him as many minutes as I want. But we'll look at how he comes out of those games with increased minutes and, adjust accordingly.
What about back-to-backs?
Back-to-backs, he's still not going to play in back-to-backs.
He had a smile for you when he found out there's no more restriction. He won't be calling you off.
Yeah, he's happy about that. And, so his minutes will increase and become more like the starters. Our starters are playing between 32 and 34 minutes. So we should be able to get him up around, 32, 34 minutes.
What is the message? You're 6th in the East. There look to be kind of 5 spots of those top 6 that are still gettable down the stretch. Yeah,
well, that is the message is, these those 6 games that we lost, we want to try to get those back. Just as we lost 6, we want to try somewhere in this 27 game season to get 6 in a row back. And, the goal is to try to get up and get home court advantage. And, with 3.5 games out of that 4th spot. We got 27 games with 15 on the road, 12 at home. That urgency, to put together a 48-minute game, starts for us on Friday. And you take it one game at a time, and you're trying to get into the playoffs and, try to get home court.
What have you seen from Victor that gives you hope moving forward, and what are some areas where you think he's still trying to feel his way through the process?
I watched him train a lot this summer, and his training, the work that he was putting in during the off season gave me hope that he was going to be okay and he would be back. The fact that now that he's into the season, I know that it takes time. When you've been off for a year and you're coming back, you would hope that your return would be in a normal training camp where you can go through training camp and start the season with your team and not be just thrown into the game in the middle of the season, which he has been. I think that takes even longer. You have to be cautious about how much you give him and how much he's doing. But I know that he will work his way back to the Victor that we saw, and if not, be even better, once he gets fully healthy and, he gets his rhythm. But, I know that takes time. I've seen that from, a lot of guys who have been off for, that long period of time, a year. Sometimes it takes you about that long to get it back.
These last couple of games before the break, it seemed like there was some semblance of chemistry. I mean, his shots were down. He only took 7 shots in that Milwaukee game. Obviously, that's not going to be the norm, but were you starting to see some chemistry there with the starters, the intended starters?
Well, that's going to take time. I think he had 14, 17 shots in games prior to that. And as you mentioned, he had only a few attempts. I've said that all season long with that unit. There are going to have to be some guys sacrificing with that unit. They all can put the ball in the basket. Sometimes the ball is going to find you more in some games than other games. And just got to play the game the right way. And, when those opportunities come, you take advantage of that. I think that has made this team a tough team to defend, having multiple guys. Our entire starting lineup averaging double-figure points and the movement of the ball. So, again, you're adding, a major part to your team on both ends of the floor. And, again, finding that rhythm with that group, the sets, the plays, the flow. We are making that adjustment and working on that mid-season. All these other 29 teams have had the entire year to find that rhythm and that chemistry. But it's where we are, and we have to continue to work on it.
With him in the starting lineup, do you make changes to it at all, either with certain plays or just any changes at all to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, well, you want to involve him. You certainly are going to try to involve him. But we also have had other options that we developed this season. Warren has been our leading scorer. So we'll figure out a way to involve all of our guys and try to take advantage of the talent that they have out there. And we're not one man or 2 or 3 man band. We're the Pacers, and I think we play the game the right way. We've talked about that. We understand that it's only one ball you have to sacrifice out there. And, so I think we'll slowly work into a rhythm with that first group.
That's Pacers coach Nate McMillan. For those of you who think that Nate McMillan is part of the problem, not part of the solution, you are wrong. He's a terrific coach and a really, really good guy. The people on this team, his coaching staff, the players, they love Nate. The front office loves Nate. This is a very harmonious situation for the Pacers, and because of that harmony that Nate is helping to create, Pacers going to bounce back sooner after welcoming Victor Oladipo back than they would have otherwise. That begins Friday night at Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. Tomorrow morning, breakfast with Kent, 8 o'clock on Facebook Live. Hopefully we're celebrating an Indiana win and a Butler win. Wouldn't that be nice? Be a little bit happy in the morning instead of carping about everything like I normally do. It's not carping. It's all fun. We know that. It's a good time. We do fun things, and you'll enjoy breakfast with Kent at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Like I said, Facebook Live, and then on Periscope and Twitter at about 8:15. It's a show so nice we do it twice. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry, Dr. Mike O'Neill, the best dentist I've ever gone to. You can make an appointment for yourself by calling 317-849-2933. Join me tomorrow morning.